for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister and his new BFF, the Maserati Marxist, have never been more out of touch. Their punishing carbon tax makes your gas, groceries and heating more expensive. The Carbon Tax Coalition has doubled housing costs, doubled rent, doubled mortgage payments, and doubled down payments for a home. Workers cannot afford to pay their rent or mortgages, and Canadians are out of money. When will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election so we can axe the tax for good?
Again, I want to remind members to be judicial on the words that they use and not to use them to describe other members. The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I just want to clarify the record for everyone who's watching Question Period on a Friday morning that the coalition on carbon pricing actually fissured this year when the NDP abandoned their policy on carbon pricing. It is known as the most effective economic measure to bring down the price of pollution and also to boost economic activity. Witness the Canada Carbon Rebate to individuals, and now witness the Canada Carbon Rebate being applied to small businesses, as much as tens of thousands of dollars depending on the size of your business. It is an economic model that is proven in terms of the evidence and is a model that helps to bring down emissions. I would just hope that the NDP would get back on board.
The Honourable Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Madam Speaker, the government has killed small business, and it's all for the pension when it comes to the NDP. Next week, the NDP leader will be forced to vote on his own words. It's the ultimate test of who he is. Does he mean what he says, or are his words meaningless? He said he was ripping up the supply and confidence deal. We know it was a stunt before a by-election. The NDP leader gets his pension. The Prime Minister gets his power. Canadians get the bill. Stop the charade, end the games, call a carbon tax election now.
So just a reminder that the questions have to do with the administration of the House. And so I just want to remind members of that. Okay. That's not a question on the administration of the House. The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadian families are paying the price for the Prime Minister's inflationary carbon tax. Canada's Food Price Report just revealed a family of 4 will spend $800 more on food in 2025. Food prices rose 36% faster in Canada than the United States. Taxing farmers, truckers, and ultimately families have driven millions of Canadians to food banks, and yet the Liberals are hiking the carbon tax again. Will the Prime Minister finally give families some relief and cancel his punitive carbon tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, 15 cents on a $100 bill. That's how small the impact of carbon pricing truly is. But when we offered Canadians a GST tax cut over the holidays, which is 100 times greater than that, the Conservatives oppose it. Conservatives demonstrate in this House every single day how they are not supporting Canadians. But this is truly a new height to their hypocrisy.
NDP Liberal government, food bank usage is actually up 90%. Rising food costs driven by the carbon tax mean the average family will spend $16,800 on food next year. People who used to donate to food banks are now clients. Canadians are struggling, and yet the Prime Minister will quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Will the Prime Minister admit his failed policies and that are making food unaffordable and cancel the carbon tax so families can put food on their table?
Honourable Minister.
I challenge that member to point to a single thing that her party has done to help Canadians address affordability issues. Frankly, it's appalling, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we will continue to put forward measures like a GST holiday, like the Canada Child Benefit, to ensure that families have the support that they need through these expensive times while they continue to deny Canadians the support that they need.
So before I go to the next question, I'm going to allow the honourable member for Miramichi-Grand Lake to re-ask his question because I hadn't heard the end of the question, but I do want to remind members that they should link their question to the administration of the House a little earlier in their question so that we know where this is heading. The honourable member for Miramichi-Grand Lake.
It's all about the pension, Madam Speaker. Next week, the NDP leader will be forced to vote on his own words. The ultimate test of who he is as a leader. Does he mean it or not? When he said he ripped up the supply agreement, it was just a stunt before a by-election. The NDP leader gets his pension. The Prime Minister gets his power. Canadians get the bill. It's time to call a carbon tax election, stop the charade, end the games, call the election now.
Okay, so there was, I thought I hadn't heard quite the thing. There was actually no question in that comment. I'm not sure if anybody wants to respond to it at this point. So there's no response to it.
Remember
Honourable Prince George.
The Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for the people. Who said that? The Twitter-tough Maserati Marxist sellout NDP leader. He popped up his chest, stomped his feet, yet he chooses the Prime Minister over Canadians each and every time. He's the only one propping up this government. He's complicit in every Liberal scandal and every failed policy. On Monday, will he vote for a carbon tax election, or will he once again put his pension before Canadians?
So that question definitely has no relevance to the administration of the House, and I want to ask members to please not be yelling out when others are speaking. The honourable member for Caribou Prince George, and it has to be with the administration of the House, or else I will cut him off and we'll go to another question. The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
Madam Speaker, they're weak, they're desperate, and the only reason why they're in power is because of the NDP leaders too selfish and too beholden to the Prime Minister to support his own motion made up of entirely his own words. They voted 24 times to quadruple the carbon tax. The costly coalition has doubled housing costs, doubled rent, doubled mortgage payments. But on Monday, they all have an opportunity. Will the NDP leader put the people above his pension?
Sorry, again, the honourable member is not being relevant to the administration of the House. We are going to move on, and next time, the next question for the members will be cut. He was asking the question. Does the honourable member, is it relevant to the administration of the House?
Asking for a carbon tax election. Madam Speaker, is that not relevant to the administration of the House?
The honourable member.
One moment, please.
The honourable member will finish his question, and if it's not relevant, then the next question will be passed on. The honourable member.
Madam Speaker, they're weak, they're desperate, and the only reason why they're in power today is because of the Maserati Marxist NDP leader, who's too selfish, too beholden to the Prime Minister to support a motion made up entirely of his own words.
Member to read his whole question. If he can just finish the question at the bottom, please.
Madam Speaker, on Monday, we have an opportunity. Will the NDP vote for a motion to call a carbon tax election?
Again, it's got nothing to do with the administration of the government. The honourable member, and if this continues, the honourable members will end up losing a question. The honourable member for River.
Thank you. The leader of the NDP says he ripped up his coalition agreement with the Prime Minister, calling him weak, selfish, and beholden to corporate interests. Conservatives agree. The NDP leader can prove it by putting his pension where his mouth is and vote non-confidence in this Prime Minister. After 9 years of the NDP Liberal coalition, housing, rent have doubled, and they will quadruple the carbon tax, driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. Will the government give the Canadians relief they need by calling a carbon tax election now?
The honourable minister.
Madam Speaker, a lot of us are struggling to understand the nature of today's question period, but I think I've discerned what it is. The official opposition seems to be off their game because they're not using a lot of three-word slogans. And because of that, it's actually destabilized the House. What I can say simply about housing is that we support housing, and we support the housing accelerator that I think 17 members of the official opposition advocated for before they were told not to by their leader. Secondly, we support the fight for the environment, and we will continue to advocate for making sure pollution is not free, and we will participate and work with any party that wants to support us in that endeavour, because it supports the environment.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Well, the holiday season is fast approaching, which means many Canadians will soon be celebrating with family and friends. But what we also know is what Canadians are getting in their Christmas stockings this year from the Leader of the Opposition. Broken campaign promises and hypocritical speeches, and more of that. Could our Minister please tell the House what we're going to do to support Canadians this winter?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for her question, her incredible work, and her leadership. Last week, this House voted to give Canadians a real break by eliminating GST on essential goods. This means that ready-to-eat meals, children's clothing, toys, books, and Christmas trees will not be taxed this holiday season. Now, Canadians across this country will benefit from real relief at the checkout. Now, unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition decided to do what he normally does and put partisan interest ahead of helping Canadians and voted against removing a tax. Can the Leader of the Opposition explain to Canadians why he decided to act like a Grinch this Christmas?
So again, questions and comments have to do with the administration of the government, and it's not to ask. He asked the question to the Leader of the Opposition. The honourable member for Calgary-Mindapore.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, the facts don't lie. The Leader of the NDP with this Prime Minister voted for the carbon tax 24 times, and they will do it again next week. This Leader of the NDP, along with the Prime Minister, will quadruple the carbon tax in the spring. He's the one who created the coalition agreement with this government that has doubled mortgages, doubled housing prices, and has sent 2 million Canadians to food banks. So this coming Monday, the Leader of the NDP has a decision. Will he continue to prop up this Prime Minister for his pension, or will he call a carbon tax election?
So again, I would just, it's very clear that individuals are playing with words and that these questions are not to do with the administration of the government. You cannot ask a leader of another party or other members to respond to these questions. It should be to the on the administration of the government and to the government to respond. The honourable member for Calgary-Mindapore, I hope that her other question is related to the administration and is asked to the government. Otherwise, the honourable member will I will have to cut her off. The honourable member for Calgary-Mindapore.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Well, just over 3 months ago, the Leader of the NDP ripped up the agreement he had with the government. He had the agreement with the government, Madam Speaker. He said that the Prime Minister was too weak, too selfish, too beholden to corporate interests to fight for Canadians. So this coming week again, on Monday, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the NDP has an opportunity again to decide if he will prop up this government again or not. Is he going to prop up the Prime Minister or allow Canadians?
Again. The honourable member knows full well, I just warned her, and she knows full well that she's not to ask questions of another opposition during question period. She is supposed to ask the government questions. And so this has been going on for quite some time. I would just ask members to please make sure that their preamble has more to do with the work of the government, so that we know that it's going in the right direction, or at least that their end of their question has to do with the government and the administration of the government. The honourable member for... sorry. The minister wants to respond. Oh, I see that the minister still wants to respond. The honourable minister.
Well, I think what's really important is to focus on some of the issues. And one of the issues that Canadians are rightfully asking about this House is about the concern about foreign interference and things such as how do we target foreign interference. What I find fascinating is that we've had a lot of discussions about the leader of the NDP. That leader has actually had the courage to get a security clearance and get a briefing to help to protect this country. In fact, there's only one member of a party that has not done exactly that, and that is the leader of the official opposition. For a man who would purport to assume and want the highest job in this country, I find it actually quite appalling that he doesn't have the courage to work on getting a clearance, getting a briefing, and protecting this country.